up this morning listening for a trumpet. Caught a glimpse of glory when I knelt down to pray. Got a homesick feeling, I was thinking about a great homecoming. Woke up this morning saying this could be the day. My alarm clock rang today, a smile appeared across my face, just like it happened early yesterday. I suppose it's safe to say that tomorrow's gonna be the same. The feeling deep inside ain't about to change. Woke up this morning listening for a trumpet. Caught a glimpse of glory when I knelt down to pray. Got a homesick feeling, I was thinking about a great homecoming. Woke up this morning saying this could be the day. Some may criticize the way that we dream about a better place, so far away beyond the clouds so blue. But if they'd ask the Lord above to come fill them with His joy and love, one happy day we'd hear them singing too. Woke up this morning listening for a trumpet. Caught a glimpse of glory when I knelt down to pray. Got a homesick feeling, I was thinking about a great homecoming. Woke up this morning saying this could be the day. Woke up this morning listening for a trumpet. Caught a glimpse of glory when I knelt down to pray. Got a homesick feeling, I was thinking about a great homecoming. Woke up this morning saying this could be the day. Hey, woke up this morning saying this could be the day. Hey, woke up this morning saying this could be the day. This could be the day. Woke up this morning listening for a trumpet. Caught a glimpse of glory when I knelt down to pray. Got a homesick feeling, I was thinking about a great homecoming. Woke up this morning saying this could be the day. Hey, woke up this morning saying this could be the day. Woke up this morning saying this could be the day. This could be the day.
If you're awed by this world and all its beauty, many stately mansions you may daily see. But without great wealth, I know I'll never own one. And you will neither if you're no more rich than me. But if your soul will look beyond what man is building, you will see what earthly mortals cannot see. For on the other side of Jordan there's construction on a mansion being built just for me.
My new home will not sit upon foundations that are man-made and will someday pass away. And it won't be built where the storms of life can harm me, or where the rain clouds often hide the light of day. But there the cornerstone of God is my foundation, the root of days. Oh, blessed thought, oh, words with heavenly comfort fraught. Whate'er I do, where'er I be, still 'tis God's hand that leadeth me. He leadeth me, He leadeth me by His strong hand. He leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by His hand He leadeth me. Lord, I would clasp Thy hand in mine, nor ever murmur nor repine, content whatever lot I see, since 'tis God's hand that leadeth me. And when my task on earth is done, when by Thy grace the victory's won, even death's cold wave I will not flee, since God through Jordan leadeth me. He leadeth me, He leadeth me by His own hand. He leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by His hand He leadeth me. For by His hand He leadeth me.
We've had a lot of snow and a lot of cold weather. I was thinking the other day, thank you, Lord, we didn't lose our electric. We've got food to eat and a warm place to sleep. You know, He takes care of us even when we don't even serve Him. But you know, the best part of life, when I was 18 years old, I accepted the Lord. And I'll tell you, it's been the best life that I could ever have, serving Him. I failed Him, but He's never failed me. And I think of this song here, it's just when you sing it, Jesus. A lot of trials and temptations and things we go through. But when you look through it, there's Jesus. Listen to the words.
It had been 3 days, his parents couldn't find him, but the scribes and the Pharisees were all gathered round him as a boy in the temple, speaking with such wisdom. They were all amazed at what he said, but in the middle of it all,
days later, his tomb was empty. He conquered death and the grave, and in the middle of it all, there was Jesus. So no matter what you're facing, no matter where you've been, just hard times or in good times, just keep your eyes on Him. Even in the heat of battle or by pleasant mountain stream, He'll be right there in the middle. That's where He's always been. So be strong and take courage when you think you're gonna fall. Right in the middle of it all, there is Jesus. There is Jesus. There is Jesus. So no matter what you're facing, no matter where you've been, in hard times or in good times, just keep your eyes on Him. Even in the heat of battle or by pleasant mountain stream, He'll be right there in the middle. That's where He's always been. So be strong and take courage when you think you're gonna fall. Right in the middle of it all, there is Jesus. There is Jesus. There is Jesus. Out on the waters, storms raging high, the waters around them, they were troubled that night. Fear filled their hearts, they felt they would die. They failed to remember that the Master was nigh. He spoke the words, the winds all stood still. Even the waters, they obey His will. He'll calm your storm, just like He will mine. If we remember, He lives deep inside. So why should I worry? Why should I fear when the very same Jesus, He is always so near? He lives in my heart. He hears when I cry. I'll call on His name till the storm passes by. We read in the Bible when He walked with them, He brought light to their darkness when the way grew so dim. How great it would be to have His footsteps in mine and walk with the Savior all of the time. And Why should I worry? Why should I fear? When the very same Jesus, He is always so near. He lives in my heart. He hears when I cry. I'll call on His name till the storm passes by. We read in the Bible when He walked with them, He brought light to their darkness. When the way grew so dim, how great it would be to have His footsteps in mine and walk with the Master all of the time. And when trials come and death seems so nigh, I'll call on the Master. He always gets there on time. And when sickness comes, all I have to do is call on His name. So why should I worry? Why should I fear? When the very same Jesus, He is always so near. He lives in my heart. He hears when I cry. I'll call on His name till the storm passes by. I'll call on His name till the storm passes by. Why should I worry? Why should I fear? When the very same Jesus, He is always so near. He lives in my heart. He hears when I cry. I'll call on His name till the storm passes by. I'll call on His name. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Till the storm passes by.
Well, I feel like I've been in church. Such a sweet spirit here. And I think one of the most difficult things, I've been traveling now for 24 years. I'm old. I was young when I first came here. I'm old. And I think one of the most difficult things is not getting in the way of what God is doing. Because I know that He is doing something. And I hear, you know, music is powerful, especially when it's filled with truth. And the same Jesus that stilled the storm, same Jesus that touched the leper, that spoke to infirmity and it had to leave, the same Jesus that opened blinded eyes is here this morning. And He is moving. And I'm not going to preach to you a full sermon, but I'm going to give you something. Is that all right? If it's not, I'm going to do it anyway. But I came here this morning, I've been thinking about John chapter 2. It's the first miracle that John records. And if you know me or have known me very long, I don't preach from John's gospel very often. And it's not because I don't appreciate John's gospel. I do. I'm just a simple man, and so I prefer Mark. And when I think about John, when I was at school, I took 4 semesters of Greek, and it seemed like we were always translating John's work. And then I took a graduate course on Johannine literature, and so the only thing I can figure is when I think about John's book, all I can think about is work. You don't care, you don't. That means a lot to me, but John is the only one that records this particular miracle, or as John prefers to refer to it, sign. And the amazing thing is, and I think it's important for us to understand the distinction, miracle is incredible, but sign points us to something more. It's easy for us to get caught up in everything that's happening around us and miss why. A miracle captures our attention and we say, well, that's just incredible. But if we see Him beyond the physical, beyond what we see here, then we can understand the work that He has come to perform in all the world. He's come to perform in our lives as well. And that's the significance of John chapter 2. Because, of course, John says this is the first miracle, and I'm just going to put this out there. You don't have to agree with it. I don't know if I do or not, but many scholars will say that this actually chronologically would not be the first miracle that Jesus performed. He's called His first disciples, and because of that, many people point. Now, I'm telling you again, you don't have to buy into this. I really don't care. It's not that important, but I want you to see the picture here. They'll point to the healing of the leper in Mark chapter 1 and Luke chapter 5 as the actual first miracle that happened. But you'll recall that happened after Jesus stated, I've got to go and preach to the surrounding regions, the towns, the villages. For this purpose I have come forth. And why He's doing what He has come to do as He's proclaiming His Father's kingdom, that's when He's interrupted by the leper. And because of that, many will say that's the first. But John wants us to see this one. Why? Because in it, we see the full work of redemption, the full work that Jesus has come to perform. It's really, really powerful. It reads like this: "And the third day there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. And both Jesus were called and His disciples to the marriage. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus saith unto Him, They have no wine. Jesus saith unto her, Woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come. His mother saith unto the servants, Whatsoever he saith unto you, do it. And there were set there 6 water pots of stone, after the manner of the purifying of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece. Jesus saith unto them, Fill the water pots with water. And they filled them up to the brim. And he saith unto them, Draw out now, and bear unto the governor of the feast. And they bare it. When the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and knew not whence it was, but the servants which drew the water knew, the governor of the feast called the bridegroom, and saith unto him, Every man at the beginning doth set forth good wine, and when men have well drunk, then that which is worse. But thou hast kept the good wine until now. This beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee, and manifested forth his glory, and his disciples believed on him. So again, I want you to see that this is the first sign that John records. Verse 1 tells us that there's a wedding, and then verse 11 says that it is the first. And really, the reason why this has captured my attention, can I just tell you, I am sick of doing church as we have done church over the years. Not here at Rubyville. You all are blessed. There's a blessing here, but I am sick of going through the mundane. I am sick of the routine. Preaching to people who are dying of thirst, and yet they refuse a drink of water. People who claim to have life, but are just as dead as the world in which they find themselves living. That is not the intent of the church that Jesus died for. He came so that we might have life, and life more abundantly. And we see that it all happens in this chapter that we watch, that there is the making of a miracle. Let me ask you this. I don't think I need to, but how many of you believe that the same God who worked miracles back in that day is able to work miracles today? How many of you still believe that we live beneath our privilege, that there is so much more that He wants to do, and yet somehow we miss it? That's why this is so powerful. This shows us the elements. It shows us the makings of a miracle. The first thing we see is a wedding. And I won't take a lot of time here, but have you ever noticed weddings are a big deal? I know there are some that have just gone through it. I'm going to tell you what I think about it. I hope they don't listen. But I think weddings are a waste of money. I do. I mean, you spend all this money for people to gather together. You're going to feed a meal to people that you never see otherwise, kind of like a church potluck. All this silliness, I just don't get it. I mean, I think maybe we should just give them that money to start a life together, and then I'll move on. You all aren't impressed about this. But we know that weddings are a big deal. They were and they still are. But you understand that back in this hour, weddings were different than they are today. It's not simply just a rehearsal dinner on one evening and then, if you're lucky, a 30 or 45-minute service the next day. No, this was a prolonged celebration. It would usually last between 5-7 days, something like that. And it really was a welcome respite to the people of that hour, where they could gather together and they could celebrate the union of two, a new life beginning. And that's what was going on in Cana of Galilee. We first see a wedding. And we notice that at this wedding, it's so powerful to me because we don't understand or know who is getting married. And there have been, over the years, a lot of speculation as to who is getting married. And I'm going to tell you what I think about it. I don't care. Speculation doesn't do any of us any good. I just am so simple that I believe that if we were meant to know, or if it mattered whose wedding it was, we would be told. We don't know whose wedding it is. All we know is who's invited. we read that Mary, the mother of Jesus, this is the way that John likes to refer to Mary, his favorite title for her. Mary, the mother of Jesus, was there, and that's the source of much of the speculation. But again, it really doesn't matter. And we know that also Jesus and his disciples were invited to that wedding, and for some reason they chose to go. Can you imagine what kind of party it must have been with Mary there, with Jesus and the disciples? Can you imagine what kind of DJ do you bring to a wedding that Jesus is going to be attending? I would suggest that you choose that carefully. And by the way, let me just say this to you. You realize that Jesus is the honored guest at every wedding that we have. So maybe instead of just thinking in our mind, as we plan out that special event, we ought to realize that he is the honored guest, he is the special guest, and he should be thought of in everything that we choose for that celebration. Well, anyhow, they're there and the celebration is going on. It seems as though the celebration has been going on. And the first thing is the wedding. But then in verse 3, you quickly transition to the wine. Because this is where we see that there is some drama playing out at this wedding. Now, who would ever believe that there would be drama at a wedding? We watch as it's beginning to play out. And the way we find out about it is Mary, the mother of Jesus, comes to her boy, comes to Jesus, and makes a statement that basically says they're out of wine. Of course, it's implying that they had had wine, but now they've run out. They have no wine. And you realize that's a big deal. Now, for a crowd at Rubyville Community Church on Sunday morning, especially when it's cold and there's ice and snow outside, we probably sit back and we think, well, they shouldn't have wine at a wedding anyhow. Understand, this is a big deal. Why? Because it's not simply, don't think of it as an intoxicating drink. It's a purifying agent as well. And you know, if they don't have wine, then the other drink, the other beverage, water, could not be served either. Why do I say that? Because you know that water in itself is impure. There are minerals, there are other things, depending where you go to. You've heard of Montezuma before. Don't sit there and act holy. You know what I'm talking about. There are things in water, if it doesn't go through a purifying system, a purifying something, then you're going to have problems. And it was the same back in this day. So when you think about the wine, we have such a tendency to simply think of an intoxicating drink. No, this is the purifying agent, because not only did they water down wine in that day, but wine was necessary for the water, because it would serve to purify, to remove the impurities that would mess with one's system. So if there is no wine, there is no water. This is a big deal. It goes beyond a celebration. It's a fact of life. Something has to happen. So she comes to Jesus and says they have no wine. They're out of wine. And not only, and let me just throw this out there. I told you I wasn't going to preach long, and you're saying, well, Billy, you're starting. I told you that this is the overarching sign that we're to see everything that Jesus has come to do. Aren't you thankful that there is a purifying agent? Oh, see, I expected a little bit more exciting than that. There's a purifying agent that can remove the impurities from within us. In the New Testament, you know, the wine is symbolic of the Holy Spirit. But in the Old Testament, there was a symbol of God's favor and blessing as well on one's life. Think about this. When Isaac blessed Jacob, he said something like this: may God give you fields of new grain and new wine. And then the prophet Joel said when God would come upon a nation, that the mountains will drip forth with new wine. In Amos, the hills will burst forth in new wine. And you remember that Isaiah gave this promise. In the last day, God himself will prepare a feast, a banquet with all his people there. How many of you are planning to be there at that banquet? And he'll fill it with aged wine. You've got to understand this is a big deal. Why does it matter? Because we are so tempted to get caught up in the drink, but you realized in this day, wealth was measured by what the land produced. It would reveal what they had. And in that, it would also show how God was blessing this family, how much favor He has poured out on their life. Why does this matter? What's the point? Because this is not about wine. We have to get beyond that symbol. It's more instead about the people. You realize to run out of wine at the wedding feast would be an embarrassment. You understand that actually in people's eyes it would be viewed as an embarrassment. It would be a disastrous thing. A stigma would be attached to these people, this young couple that would follow throughout their days, that God did not favor that marriage, that union. Oh, that's a big deal. Aren't you thankful? It's the overarching sign that we have one that can remove the stigma of sin from our life. Mary's concerned. This is her heart. So she comes to her boy. They have no wine, implying do something about it. So Jesus responds in verse 4. He calls her woman. And I know that sounds funny to us. It really does, because I had a mom. How many of you have mom? Of course you had moms. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever asked in my life. That's how we're here. That's the way things happen. If not, meet me afterwards. Moms are so special. I'm learning how to adjust a life without mom here on earth. My mom probably at her best, she probably weighed around 115 pounds. She wasn't a big lady. When she passed, she was around 83 pounds, something like that. Only stood about this tall. She was a little hillbilly lady from southeast Kentucky. And I was afraid of her. I really was. I mean, she was little, but she was my mom. And every now and then, I'd like to say things that would shock her. Any of you all like to do that to your mom? I did. I would say things as long as I was out of the reach of her arm and could get away. I mean, she'd get me later. I mean, you learn not to run from your mom and dad, but anyhow, every now and then I'd call her a woman, and she didn't appreciate that too much. And it's funny to think about, but here you know that this is a term of endearment. It's what he would refer to her as, and he says, woman, what's that have to do with me? And really it's a Hebrew idiom that says, properly translated, would be something more like, what's that to you and to me? In other words, he's saying, this is not our concern. Brian said it's none of your business. I don't know how he talks to his mom. You know, but that's what it's saying. This doesn't have anything to do with us. This is not our concern. And then he says, my hour has not yet come. And remember, this is the sign through which we see everything that's going on. And you know that when Jesus speaks of his hour, what's he referring to? The cross. Oh, if we could only see everything that's going on. My hour has not yet come. This has nothing to do with us. Just let it be. But then Mary, as a good mother does, it seems as though she doesn't pay any attention to what Jesus has just said. She looks beyond what he has spoken, and she focuses her attentions upon the servants. This is verse 5. And listen to what she says. Whatever he tells you to do it. Think about that. Jesus has said this has nothing to do with us. And then Mary's mother, Jesus' mother, looks to the servants and says, whatever he tells you to do it. And I want you to think about this for a moment. And I promise I'll wrap it up. Whatever. Anything that he says, no matter what it might be. No matter how difficult it may seem or how silly it might come across, just do it. Whatever he tells you to do. And I want you to notice her confidence in that statement. There is no question here. She obviously believes that Jesus can do something. There's no question in her mind that he is. But then we watch, it goes a little bit further than that. She plainly believes, even though she has heard his words, she plainly believes that he will do something. And I'm just going to put this out there. I don't think the problem in most churches that I speak at, I don't think the problem in most Christians' life is that we don't believe that Jesus can do something. I believe we all believe that he can. We've heard the stories of the past. We've got the testimony. We know that he is able. We sing the songs. He's able to do what needs to be done. I don't think that's the issue. I think the problem is most of us don't believe that he will. There is a difference in just believing that he can and knowing that he will. When you have the confidence that he will do what needs to be done, you are able to stare hell right in the face and stand in the power of his Spirit, knowing that he will have the final say. He is not only able to do something, he will do something. Do you believe this morning that he will do in your life? Okay, let me just fly through. So Jesus turns water into wine. You see that? The water pots are there. Water pots that were almost empty for a reason. There was no need for them anymore. It was an outward cleansing type thing. See, the Jews had hand sanitizer before we ever did. By the way, quit smearing that stuff all over you. You do remember we took them out of elementary schools for a reason. Kids were getting sick from licking on that stuff. He makes water into wine. It's an incredible miracle. A lot of other aspects that we could look at that we won't. But I want you to see after the servant, the head governor, the head servant, the head waiter tastes that wine, he says, man, this is the best. What have you done? Most people bring out the best at the beginning, then after the people have well drunk. And hear that language, it doesn't say after the people are well drunk. After they have well drunk, then they bring out the least. But you have saved the best till last. Well, what's the big deal? Remember, this is the first sign. It points us beyond what's going on to something more. Through this, we're intended to see him, what he's doing, his purpose for coming. It's the framework that we interpret everything else, and we're reminded that it's not about the wine, it's all about the people. Most importantly, it's about the person that can make a difference in the people's life and circumstance. It's all about him, and it all begins with the statement that Mary makes, they are out of wine, they have no wine. Why does that matter? Because that speaks truth to everybody's life in this place. Every one of us, I don't care who you are, I don't care how long you've been about this, there will come a point in your life that we all end up there. The celebration seems to be ending. Things seem to become empty and we begin to dry. And what I want you to know this morning is the miracle begins when the wine runs out. Some of us are out of wine. Our joy in serving Jesus seems to be gone. It's dried up. Our enthusiasm lacks. We gather in settings like this and we enjoy the show, but somehow the love we once knew has grown cold. We have ended up with a joyless, lifeless salvation. And I've come here this morning to say to you, for anybody who is dry, for anybody who has run out of wine, do whatever he tells you to do. It's just that simple. It doesn't take some big program. It doesn't take some big secret. No, do whatever he tells you to do, no matter how small it may be, no matter how silly it may seem or unnatural. It may be as simple as putting water in water pots, but if he tells you to do it, hear me, just carry the water. We get our heads in so many different places that it's got to take this, or we've got to stand and hold a microphone, or we've got to do... No, just carry the water. Because when you carry the water, he'll supply the wine. That's not your responsibility, it's his. And when you do what Jesus tells you to do, folks, you realize this. It unleashes the power of God in your life, in your circumstance. And when his power is unleashed, things change. When Jesus changes things, it's not simply halfway. They're better than they've ever been before. And I will tell you today that as children of the kingdom, we don't live our lives simply looking back. We live our lives going forward, remembering what he has done, because we know when you walk with Jesus, the best is yet to come. Just carry the water. Do you believe this morning that Jesus has the power to change things? There have been some around these altars that believe that. He is able. All we need to do is do whatever he tells you to do. You want to know where a miracle begins? Just carry the water. Just carry the water. Because when you carry up the water, it opens up a possibility of transformation of your life and of your circumstance. And Jesus can take something and change it. Do you know that's how he works? That same Jesus who spoke peace to a storm. Same Jesus who touched the leper and the leper was made whole. Spoke to infirmity, infirmity had to leave. Opened blinded eyes, raised the dead. That same Jesus that turned water into wine is able to do what needs to be done in your life and circumstance. All he's looking for are people who are willing to do what he says, even if it's just carrying the water. I need to be reminded of that today. Maybe you don't, but I do, because I don't believe he's finished. And I was complaining to Cal before. Well, I'll confess, maybe when some music was going on, I don't remember, about the way things seem to go in our churches, in our church world. The good news is, if there are some people who are willing to do what he says, even if it's just carrying the water, I want to carry the water. I've been too wrapped up in so many other things. I just want to carry the water, because when I carry the water, when you carry the water, he'll provide the wine. So Jesus, this morning, we thank you for the way that you've moved today. There's no question that you're here. You're working. We've seen it evidenced. We've watched. We felt you, but I wasn't able to get away from this idea. So I would pray for the one who has been an observer. Not that they don't have things in their life that they need you to do. They've just been an observer. They'd say that I believe he can, but have never stepped into that realm believing that he will. Help us today to be the people who not only say he's able, but will say he's going to do it. It's going to happen. And while we wait, we just carry the water. I'm going to invite you, please, to stand to your feet all over the sanctuary. Thank you. I know that there's been work that's happened around these altars, but I believe there's probably still more work that needs to be done. Are you willing to carry the water? Are you willing to do what he says? Not only saying he can, but knowing that he will. There is a difference. So as we're led, you do what the Lord would have you to do.
There's a miracle in the making, one just for you. The Father is working even now. Your prayers have been heard, and the answer is on the way. There's a miracle in the making for you today. There's a miracle in the making, one just for you. The Father is working even now. Your prayers have been heard, and the answer is on the way. There's a miracle in the making for you today. Have you prayed and prayed, and still you find no answer? Has your faith grown weak, and you feel you're all alone? Don't give up, for the God you serve won't fail you. There's a miracle for you, friend. Just hold on. Sing it with us. There's a miracle in the making, one just for you. The Father is working
God. What a beautiful day to be in God's house. Praise the Lord for His presence today. Thank you, Billy. Great job, the trio. Tremendous job. Billy will be back with us tonight. He'll be singing and preaching in our service, and we're glad that he's here. And let me take this opportunity to thank all of you that are here today. I realize that with the weather the way it is, you paid a price to be here, and I pray you've been blessed for being here. It's really good to see Greg and Nancy back with us, and Danny and Janet back in the service again. We're glad you're here, and great to see a few pastors in with us that I know in some of the locations they couldn't get their lots cleared and other things, and you still chose to be here in church with us today. And we appreciate these pastors that have come, don't we? We thank God for you being here in this place. Now, today, we will not have Sunday school today, but it will start again. We'll resume all of our classes on next Sunday. Tonight, the youth will meet, and then also on next Sunday, Live Wires and Little Lambs will begin again on next Sunday, so you can be making your plans for all of those. It's good to see things going back in the right direction, and we're so thankful for that, and we appreciate your patience during this time. There's several announcements in your bulletin. There's one that I call your attention to. I hope that you'll be praying for Luann and Bob Campbell. Luann's brother, John Charrington, went to be with the Lord. The reason I mention it is so you'll draw your attention to that. The calling hours are today up at Oak Hill at Lewis Gillum Funeral Home. Lewis Gillum has funeral homes in a couple locations, but it will be at the Oak Hill location, and then a public graveside service tomorrow at 4 o'clock. They're a precious family. Be praying for them. They drive all the way from Jackson faithfully to be here in our services, and I know you'll want to show them love and support during this time, and also the other families that have gone through sorrow this week. Continue to lift them up and pray for them. Isn't it good to be in God's house? Thank God. Thank you for coming out. God bless you. Consider yourself dismissed. We'll see you tonight at 7:30.